Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something right now. Your growth is your business. Ain't nobody else going to live your life for you, feel your pain for you, or get you to your destination but you. And that's why you got to focus on yourself like your life depends on it. Because truth be told, it does. See, too many people out here are busy looking sideways. They scrolling, comparing, watching what everybody else is doing, but they ain't putting in the work on themselves. They worried about what this person got, what that person said, who doing what with who, and all the while their own dreams are just sitting there collecting dust. That's not how you get it. That's not how success happens. That's not how you grow. You don't grow by watching other people. You grow by doing the work quietly, consistently, day in and day out. I remember when I was sleeping in my car trying to get stage time, trying to figure it all out. You think I had time to worry about what other folks were saying? Nah, I was focused. I had to be. Because if I didn't take care of me, if I didn't stay locked in on my path, I wasn't going to make it. And that's real. You can't let yourself get distracted by what don't serve you. You can't be chasing applause, validation, or approval. Nobody has to understand what you're doing. They don't have to see your vision. It wasn't given to them. It was given to you. And that's why you got to protect it. You got to guard it like your life's on the line, because in a way it is. Your future is on the line. Your peace, your purpose. And when you start focusing on yourself, really focusing, you're going to notice something. You're going to feel lonely. You're going to feel like people falling off. Some people are going to start acting funny. You know why? Because your growth makes them uncomfortable. You leveling up and they still stuck in the same spot. That silence, that discipline, that change in your energy, it speaks louder than words. But here's the part that messes folks up. They get scared of that silence. They think being alone means being wrong. No. Sometimes being alone means you finally got it right. Sometimes that space is where the breakthrough happens. That's where you start hearing your own thoughts. That's where you start healing, growing, transforming. You don't grow in crowds. You grow in quiet. In that space where you can think, where you can pray, where you can hear God talking to you, guiding you. That's where your power is. But we live in a world that's loud. People are always broadcasting everything, telling their plans before they take their first step, posting every move like it's going to make it happen faster. But the truth is, the more you talk, the less you do. Talk doesn't build legacies. Action does. Sacrifice does. Faith does. So you got to ask yourself, do you want attention or do you want results? Because you can't chase both. The folks who get it, the ones who really build something that lasts, they focus on themselves, not selfishly, but intentional. They know they got to grow before they can give. They got to become something before they can help somebody else. You can't pour from an empty cup, man. You can't give the world your best if you ain't even taking time to become your best. So take that time. Get off social media if you got to. Cut off distractions. Set boundaries. Say no more often. Wake up earlier. Work in silence. Read more. Learn more. Get stronger mentally. Get closer to God. Do whatever you got to do to stay focused, because while you're building, they'll be talking. While you're growing, they'll be laughing. But when you arrive, when that door opens, all that silence you kept, it'll echo louder than anything they ever said. Because growth, real growth, happens when it's just you, your vision, and your grind. And that's exactly how it's supposed to be. Let me tell you something that changed my life. Not everybody deserves access to your plans. I know you might feel excited about what you're working on. You want to share it with people. You want to let the world know what's coming. But the truth is, when you open your mouth too soon, you let the wrong people in. And when the wrong people get in, they bring the wrong energy. You ever notice that? The moment you start telling folks your goals, suddenly everybody's got an opinion. They start questioning you, planting little seeds of doubt, saying stuff like, you sure that's going to work? You really think you can do that? What if you fail? that negativity creeps in, and before you know it, you start doubting yourself. Not because you didn't believe, but because they did. See, what I've learned in this life is that silence isn't weakness. Silence is strategy. When you stay silent about your moves, you stay in control. When you talk too much, you give people the opportunity to shoot down dreams they didn't help you build. And I'll be honest, some people don't want to see you win, not because they're evil, but because your growth reminds them of their own stagnation. You shining makes them uncomfortable with their own darkness. That's why when God gives you a vision, you got to treat it like a treasure. You don't go around showing a thief where you hide your gold, do you? No, you protect it, you lock it up, you guard it. Same goes for your goals. Some folks don't need to know what you're working on, not because you're being sneaky, but because you're being wise. You got to learn to be private, not secretive. There's a difference. Secretive is hiding something out of fear or shame. Private is protecting something because it's precious. You ain't hiding. You're building. You're developing. You're in the lab. You're sharpening your skills. And when it's time, when it's ready, that's when you show the world, but not a moment before. And here's another thing. Some of the most powerful moves you'll ever make will be made in silence. No announcement, no celebration, no parade. Just you putting in the work day after day while everybody else is distracted. That's where the magic happens. In the shadows, in the stillness, in the quiet places where it's just you and your purpose. And when you move like that, something incredible happens. You start feeling more peace. You're not constantly explaining yourself. You're not defending your choices. You're not performing for approval. You're just doing you. And that freedom, that focus, that's what takes you to the next level. Now, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with having a support system. A few solid people in your corner who uplift you, push you, pray for you. That's beautiful. But you don't need a crowd. You don't need the whole world clapping for you before you even start. Let your results be the applause. Let your finished product be the proof. Because people don't believe what you say, they believe what you show. So many people lose their momentum because they're too busy announcing the beginning instead of finishing the race. They want the credit before they earn it. But see, when you stay low and keep working, that's when you start surprising folks. One day you're quiet, head down, grinding. The next day, boom, you done built something amazing. And the same people who doubted you, now they want to know how you did it. But they ain't got to know how. Because it wasn't for them to understand, it was for you to execute. Silence is power. It gives you room to breathe, room to fail in private, room to grow without judgment. You can make mistakes without the whole world watching. You can pivot, adjust, reinvent yourself. That's the beauty of moving in silence. You get to evolve without interruption. So keep your circle tight. Keep your plans guarded, and don't feel guilty for keeping some things to yourself. The most successful people in the world aren't the ones who talk the most. They're the ones who work the hardest when nobody's watching. That's the game, and when you play it right, your silence becomes the loudest thing in the room. You know what most people don't understand in this generation? Noise ain't progress. Just because something's loud doesn't mean it's moving forward. Just because somebody's busy talking doesn't mean they're actually doing anything. And let me tell you something from real life experience. If you truly want to grow, if you want to accomplish something big, if you want to get somewhere in life, you've got to protect your focus. And silence, sweet, pure silence is where focus lives. See, everybody today is trying to stay plugged in. Every notification, every app, every conversation, every group chat, every trending post, people act like they're going to miss out on life if they unplug. But what they really miss out on is themselves. They miss out on their purpose. They miss out on their gift. You can't build anything real in chaos. You can't hear God's voice when you got the whole world shouting in your ears. And you sure as hell can't find peace when your life is just noise on top of noise. When I was building my career, it wasn't the applause that pushed me forward. It was the quiet moments. It was the silence when I sat down with a notebook, a prayer, and a dream. It was the quiet when I was writing jokes by myself, trying to figure out how I was going to make somebody laugh enough to feed my kids. It was the silence when I was driving from one small town comedy club to another, wondering if this dream of mine was ever going to turn into something real. No music, no friends, no phone, just me and my thoughts. And in that silence, that's where I got focused. That's where I realized what mattered. That's where I learned how to hear my own voice instead of everyone else's opinions. Because let's be real, everybody got advice for you. Everybody got an opinion on how you should live your life. But if you always listening to them, you'll never know who you are. You'll never figure out what you want. Silence lets you connect with your vision. It clears the fog. It sharpens your direction. Focus is a discipline. It don't come easy, especially not in a world that's constantly trying to distract you. But that's why silence is your superpower. It separates you from the noise, from the drama, from the doubt. It trains your mind to stay locked in. Because when you get still, when you learn how to quiet the outside world, you start to hear something powerful. You start to hear clarity. And clarity, my friend, is where everything changes. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you sat down with yourself? No music, no background TV, no scrolling. Just sat down and checked in with your own soul. You'd be surprised how much you're running from your own truth. Silence will show you what you've been ignoring. It'll show you what needs healing, what needs fixing, and what you need to chase. But most folks are scared of that kind of stillness because it makes them feel again. And feeling is uncomfortable. But that discomfort, that's growth knocking at your door. Some of the best moves I ever made came after long, silent thinking. Not rushed, not influenced, just focused. I remember being faced with decisions that could have changed everything, for better or worse. And instead of rushing into it or calling everybody I knew, I got quiet. I prayed, I listened, and that silence gave me the strength to hear God's whisper. Because let me tell you something, man. God don't yell. He ain't trying to compete with your playlist. He speaks in peace, in calm, in stillness. And if your life's too loud, you gonna miss it. People ask me, Steve, how do you stay grounded with everything going on around you? I tell them I protect my focus like it's my life, because in many ways it is my life. Without focus, I'm scattered. Without silence, I'm lost. I've learned that you don't need to respond to everything. You don't need to attend every argument, every invitation, every drama-filled situation. Sometimes your best answer is silence. Sometimes your greatest power is walking away and staying locked in on your path. You know what silence really does? It teaches you discipline. When you work in silence, when you grind behind the scenes, you learn how to keep going without applause. And that's the key to longevity. That's the key to greatness. Because there will be seasons where nobody's clapping for you, nobody's checking for you. But if you've built your focus in silence, you won't need them to. You'll keep moving anyway. You'll keep building because you've trained your mind not to need outside validation. There was a time when I used to worry about what folks thought of me, about who was watching, who was judging. I wasted time trying to prove myself. But now, man, I let my work prove itself. I let the results speak, and I protect my peace. I don't let just anybody in my space. If you disrupt my focus, I remove you. Simple. Because my future depends on my ability to stay focused in a world built to distract me. And that goes for everybody out there chasing something real. You want to be successful? You want to build something great? Then get serious about your focus. Stop answering every call. Stop reacting to every little thing. Learn to sit in silence. Learn to love it. Learn to use it. Turn off the world for a little bit each day and turn on your purpose. Get to know your thoughts. Get to know your vision. And once you're locked in, nothing can stop you, because once you develop that kind of focus, that laser sharp, unbreakable kind of focus, you become dangerous. Not to other people, but to every excuse, every fear, every limitation that ever tried to stop you. Silence sharpens you. Silence makes you unshakable. And when you're unshakable, ain't no storm in this world that can move you off your path. You know what gets people stuck more than anything else? Trying to explain their dream to people who ain't even qualified to understand it. See, the problem today is we think we got to share everything. We think we owe the world an explanation. Like, we can't move forward unless we've told somebody what we're about to do. But let me tell you something real right now. You don't owe nobody your plan. You don't have to broadcast every goal, every idea, every little step you take. What you owe them, if anything at all, is the finished product, the result. That's it. People got it twisted out here. They think success is about documenting the journey for approval. They'll post, oh, I'm about to start my business, or I'm getting ready to change my life, and they want the likes and the claps and the support before they've even done anything. But the truth is, when you're really about your purpose, you ain't got time to be telling everybody what you're about to do. You're too busy doing it. And here's the thing, when you start explaining your plan to folks, you open the door to their doubts, their fears, their insecurities. You ever tell somebody your dream and they hit you with, you sure about that, or you know how hard that is? Yes, what happens when you let the wrong people in your process? Not everyone is meant to walk with you. Some folks are there just to watch, and some of them are secretly hoping you fail. That's why silence is powerful. That's why keeping your moves private ain't weakness, it's wisdom. When I was sleeping in my car, grinding in little comedy clubs, trying to get my first real break, I wasn't out here explaining myself to everybody. I had people asking me why I wasn't getting a real job. They didn't understand why I was driving city to city just to tell jokes for a couple dollars and some chicken wings. But they didn't have to understand. I didn't owe them that. I owed it to myself to chase my calling, and I owed God my obedience. That was it. Because explaining your dream to people who ain't got vision, that's like trying to show color to someone who's blind. They just ain't going to see it. You know what I realized along the way? People respect results. You don't need to convince them when they can see it. Let me say that again. When they can see the outcome, the fruit, the success, they understand. You walk different when you prove it. When your results walk in the room before you do, you don't have to say a word. Your work, your discipline, your grind, it all speaks on your behalf. But you got to protect your vision in the early stages. That's when it's the most fragile. That's when it's most vulnerable to criticism, to fear, to self-doubt. If you let too many voices into your plan, you start second-guessing yourself. You lose your rhythm. You start making adjustments for people who ain't even building anything themselves. Why would you take advice from someone who's never stepped out on faith? Why would you shape your dream around someone who ain't even dreaming? It's like planting a seed. When you first put it in the soil, it don't need an audience. It don't need applause. It just needs time, water, sunlight, care. And you don't go digging it up every day to show people how it's growing. That would kill it. That seed got to stay covered so the roots can grow deep. That's your dream. That's your purpose. Keep it protected. Let it develop in private so when it finally breaks through the surface, strong and unshakable, then the world can see. You got to understand, some people only want to hear your plan so they can talk you out of it, or worse, so they can copy it and beat you to it. That's just facts. Not everybody's clapping for you. Not everybody wants to see you win. Some folks only support you when you're beneath them. The minute you start rising, that support turns to shade real quick. That's why you keep your mouth closed and your head down. You don't need to talk, just work. When I got my first TV gig, people said, "Steve, how'd you get that?" I said, "God." But what they didn't see was the years I spent struggling. They didn't see the nights I cried in my car, the rejections, the failures, the small shows where nobody laughed. They didn't see the work because I didn't put it all out there. I was building quietly. And when the breakthrough came, it was loud. It was undeniable. That's how results move. Let me tell you something else. Every minute you spend explaining your plan is a minute you could have used executing it. While you're trying to justify your goals to folks who don't matter, someone else is out there putting in the work and passing you up. You think the greats spent their time talking about what they were going to do? No, they just did it. And the world took notice when it was done. It's okay to be misunderstood. It's okay if people think you're being secretive or distant. Let them think what they want. You're not being rude. You're being focused. You're not being arrogant. You're being protective. That's what leaders do. That's what winners do. They don't explain themselves to people who ain't qualified to judge. And I'm not saying don't have mentors. I'm not saying don't pray or seek guidance from wise people. But there's a big difference between seeking wisdom and begging for approval. Know the difference. Trust yourself, trust the process, trust the vision that God put inside of you. Because He didn't show it to them, He showed it to you. That means you don't need everybody to believe in it. You just need to believe in yourself. So the next time you feel the urge to post your plan, to prove yourself to somebody, to explain why you're moving different, don't. Let your success explain it. Let your life become the testimony. Let your work be the proof. And when they see what you built, when they see what you overcame, they won't need your plan. They'll be looking at the results and they'll know. You know what I learned over the years through all the struggle, all the hustle, all the setbacks and comebacks? The world don't care what you say you're going to do. People don't remember what you promised. They remember what you delivered. You can talk all day long, you can shout it from the rooftops, but in the end, the only thing that sticks, the only thing that gets respect is results. Results speak louder than announcements. Always have, always will. We live in a world full of noise. Everybody talking about what they're about to do. I'm going to start my business. I'm about to launch this. I'm working on something big. This year going to be different. You hear it every day. But how much of it actually happens? How much of it ever becomes real? See, the world is full of announcers, but light on finishers. Full of dreamers who never turn those dreams into something we can touch, feel, see. I'm going to keep it real with you. Talk is cheap. Anybody can talk a big game. Anybody can make a post, shoot a video, go live and say, just wait, I'm coming. But the folks who actually arrive, they don't say much. They don't need to. You know why? Because their results walk in before they do. You feel it. When somebody's been grinding in silence, sacrificing, putting in the hours, and then they finally show up with something real, you respect that, you admire that. Because deep down, we all know what it takes to turn vision into reality. That ain't easy. That takes everything. I remember when I was on the come up, I ain't had no flashy press release. I ain't tell everybody my moves. I didn't even have the energy to explain my dream to everybody who asked. I just worked. I worked like my life depended on it, because it did. I wasn't trying to impress nobody. I was trying to survive. And when the moment came, when I got that first opportunity on TV, people acted like I came out of nowhere, like it was over. Nah, it was years of nights. Nights where I cried, nights where I questioned myself, nights where I could have quit. But the reason people stood up and took notice wasn't because I said I would make it. It was because I did. You want people to notice you? Stop talking so much. Stop trying to convince them with words. Convince them with work. Convince them with consistency. You want respect? Earn it. Let your results walk into the room before you do. Let your results speak on your behalf, because when they do, you won't have to say a word. Real recognize real, and real work always shows up, always gets noticed. You know how many people told me I wouldn't make it? That I wasn't funny enough, wasn't polished enough, wasn't connected enough? If I'd stopped every time somebody doubted me, I'd still be back in that car, sleeping at gas stations. But I didn't answer those voices with explanations. I answered them with execution, with results. And let me tell you something. The same people who doubted you will have no choice but to respect you when you produce. The beautiful part about working in silence, grinding without making noise, is that when the results come, they hit different. See, when people don't see your process, they don't expect your outcome. And that shock, that surprise when you show up with something powerful, is undeniable. It changes how people look at you, but more importantly, it changes how you look at yourself, because you realize you don't need approval to make progress. You don't need applause to move forward. You just need faith, discipline, and a work ethic that don't quit. Let me ask you something. Are you building for claps, or are you building for legacy? Because if you're building for claps, you're going to stay broke in spirit. You'll live for validation, always needing somebody to co-sign your effort. But if you're building for legacy, you ain't worried about being seen right now. You're just focused on being remembered. That's a different level. That's what results are all about. That's what longevity is built on. Results will speak when you're not in the room. Results will speak when you're asleep. Results will open doors that your words never could. That's why I always tell young folks, don't rush to show off. Don't rush to go viral. Focus on building something real, something solid, something that can stand. Because when it stands, you won't need to shout. Your work will speak volumes. I see a lot of people get discouraged because they're doing the work, but they feel invisible. Nobody's clapping, nobody's reposting, nobody's noticing. Let me encourage you, keep going. Because when the harvest comes, it'll be bigger than any applause you ever could have received early on. The ones who stay quiet, stay focused, and stay faithful, they're the ones who win. Every time. And when you finally show up with the results, when you hit that goal, when you launch that thing, when you make that breakthrough, watch how people switch up. Watch how the same folks who ignored you come around and say, I always believed in you. Nah, they didn't believe in the plan, but they can't ignore the results. You don't need to announce your dreams, just build them. You don't need to announce your hustle, just live it. You don't need to defend your choices, just prove them. Because when the results come, when the fruit is on the tree, nobody asks how you planted the seed. They just want to taste the harvest. So stop wasting time trying to explain your journey to people who never packed a bag for their own. Stop giving speeches to folks who ain't even listening. Let the work speak. Let the results speak. Because that's the language everybody understands. And you keep your head down. Keep moving. Keep grinding. Because if you stay faithful, stay focused, and stay hungry, one day you'll walk into the room and you won't have to say a word. The results will speak for you. And when they do, they'll be louder than anything you ever could have announced.